Mm-hmm. This is Kiki. She has been very naughty all evening, but the lady's with the family, so what's a guy to do? Sometimes she's extremely well behaved, and other times she is Kiki. But some of you kind people in the comments wanted to meet her, so there she is. Maybe she'll come back. Who's to say? Sometimes she follows me around the apartment so I can barely get 2 steps in, even after she's been fed. And other times I don't see her at all. So, anyway, this is a DVD of The Big Lebowski, as you can see. It says Big Lebowski as opposed to The Big Lebowski because it's a Czech DVD. Uh, Last year, I was thinking about going to see this on December 31st because my favorite theater in Prague shows it every December 31st. The time of recording is December 30th. And last year I was in a very, very, very dark, bleak place at this time. And it would continue on for a few more months. But I ultimately didn't go see Big Lebowski in the theater last year. And I said to myself that I would go see it next year, that being tomorrow, today, when this video is being uploaded, and that I would be doing so when everything had been resolved or improved. Now, I'm not talking perfect resolution or anything, but it is very important to me to go see Big Lebowski tomorrow as a sign of little victory. So, to close this year out, I think we should all look for our own version of what The Big Lebowski will be to me tomorrow. Today. You get the point. December 31st. So, we will close the year out at Finchinator's expense, of course. We will put the end on the quadrilogy of Finch slamming. And because the trilogy was perfect, but sometimes you just gotta come back for an encore. I wasn't going to until he left a comment on the last video. Asked for it. Anyway, so here's what's going on. I will tell you some stuff about my plans for Pokemon and the channel. Kiki, что ты делаешь? Что ты делаешь? Что ты хочешь? My Russian is bad. Что ты хочешь? Что ты хочешь? Хочешь со мной? Хочешь? Да, хочешь? So, see, sometimes she's like that, and then she's, who knows? I think she needs to hunt. Anyway, so, I also need a haircut. That's what I need. But next year, am I right? Okay, so I will tell you about my plans for the channel upcoming. Well, they're not really, grand or anything, but that and what's going on in movie land, and then I don't have the energy to talk about Pokemon stuff, so I am going to, with your permission, veg out about some movie stuff. If you just like hearing me talk, then it's all the same to you anyway. But if you like movies, then I hope you take some recommendations from this. They are all very well worth your while. I have great taste. I don't know if you know that. Stuff I've been thinking about a lot. And yeah, so thing number one with the channel. Actually, I guess I should mention it's not just the channel with the Patreon, because I've been swearing up and down I'm going to be doing stuff for it, forever. But now I'm really, forcing myself to. I'm finally getting organized. That's from Taxi Driver. And the the point of that is that I'm going to be better at sticking to a schedule because it just messes me up when I don't have one. I go in a million directions at once. Anyone who's ever heard me talk in a video can imagine that. And then I leave things put off. But yeah, for the Patreon stuff, I have some ideas. For the channel, I was also thinking of like sending your teams and I'll rate them kind of thing, once a week. But for the Patreon, I would like to know what you would like. I was thinking of just, more like inside baseball kind of, back in 2012, there was this like little tournament scandal, like for the people who dig that kind of stuff. Um, and yeah, for the people who like that kind of thing and want more of it or whatever you want, you're the patron, so you decide. Um, yeah, so let me know what you would like. But I plan on putting something like that like at least once every 2 weeks, so twice a month minimum. Ideally, 3 times, but yeah. Um, yeah, while I'm getting started. I don't want to get ahead of myself because another thing I do is I get a bunch of great ideas and then I get ahead of myself and then it overwhelms and then nothing gets done, right? You don't want that. Yeah. So that's the patron thing. That's the channel thing. The rate your teams thing. And just more what kind of videos you guys like. Because I usually like doing my own stuff, but I'm always looking, excuse me, for ideas as well. So, yeah. For those of you who are interested in my movie, the zombies and everything, that is on delay because of a lot of reasons I'd rather not get into right now. Point is that's the bad news, that making a movie is insanely difficult. The good news is next week I'm shooting something else, a full feature on a very low budget, of course, but I'll find a way. And then I think I might, without getting ahead of myself, do something similar after that in the months after that. But the plan is to shoot something big in about 12 months. And in the time leading up to that, shoot at least one film before, because I just got to get something done. So I'm very excited for that. I'll keep you posted on that kind of thing. I'm also working on a novel, believe it or not, because there's a lot of time when preparing for film, so that leaves you with time for other creative pursuits. And I like writing as well. I like writing, reading, all that jazz. So I want that to be done by the time by my birthday. So I will keep you posted on that as well. Get excited. What else? That's that. The film thing I'm actually very excited for. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically everything on what's to come regarding, the channel stuff. So now let's get into the movie side of things. These movies I've selected are those in my collection that I have either seen for the first time this year or that I have seen this year and made a big impact on me. Everything here has been important in some way. So yeah, I've seen a lot, but I don't have everything on DVD. So I decided to narrow it down because the stuff that's most near and dear to me, I usually track down on DVD or Blu-ray because streaming sucks and it's just so much better. God, I really enjoy explaining to people why a DVD or Blu-ray is so much better than streaming. Yeah, I've actually narrowed it down. I was originally going to do like twice this amount, but then I was like, Kev, you're tired and you want to watch a movie today. Good Lord, I'm exhausted. Yeah. The schedule thing is also important, so I don't mess up my sleep. And by that, I mean, I tend to go to sleep at a pretty reasonable hour and wake up, around 7, 8. But the problem is that I drink a lot of water during the day because hashtag hydration gang, right? But the problem is I drink it too late. And then I have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. So like while I might get 7, 8 hours regularly, it's split up by having to go to the bathroom. And then I feel way more tired than I should in the morning. It's a really dumb problem to have, but I drink, it's like 3 hours before bed. You're not supposed to drink. Anyway. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Anyway, so yeah, these are just, okay. So I'll start with my favorite movie of the year, that I discovered this year rather. I don't have any 2024 stuff on physical yet. But yeah, this is The Spirit of the Beehive by Victor Erice. I hope I'm saying that right. I've mentioned it in a video before. I think the last Finchinator slander video actually. But this is like a serious contender for my favorite movie ever now. It's about a 6-year-old girl in a small village in Spain during the Spanish Civil War. And see, movies teach you about stuff or encourage you to learn more about stuff. Anyway, so there's a traveling cinema that comes to the village and all the kids go crazy for it. And they show James Whale's film Frankenstein from the early 30s. which I have since then sought out, and it is great. But yeah, and this little girl, this is her first like meeting with death. There's a lot of allegory about the Spanish Civil War going on here, which I don't fully understand, and I'm very excited to get more into that when I watch it again, when I read about it more. And there's a documentary on this thing which I have to watch. But what I'm so enthralled with, and I think most people are, is just the sheer look and feel of it, which transcend, because back then all the Spanish movies had to be very oblique about their critiques of the regime because of the censors. Franco was pretty strict on that, but more than just being a hidden allegory, it touches on, and you don't if a movie or a book or whatever just has one idea, it might communicate that idea very well, but it's still just the one idea, which is not a bad thing. But of course the greatest are hitting on the vastly connected web of human experience, and this one is like some sort of nostalgic daydream gone wrong. Not quite in the like, oh, suddenly it turns into a psychological horror or anything like that. There are like slight overtones or undertones, I should say, because of the or overtones too, but because of the whole Frankenstein framing. But it's everyone says childlike wonder about this film, but to me it's just the feeling, because her parents are also very much in the picture. The dad is the beekeeper, it's where the beehive comes from, and her mother writes letters to this former lover who is way in the past. So I don't know, I haven't come close to fully unlocking this, as if you could ever, but it touches on a lot, and I've realized I'm not being very comprehensive here. Oh, that was the other thing. I am finally getting the movie channel running. I started doing some movie writing actually, which stay tuned for that, which I enjoy very much. I'd like to do that in a more serious capacity. And when I do that, then I'm more coherent than I am right now. But yeah, this is one of those films where you can talk about it and write about it forever, but the whole point of the movies is that they are transmitting the experience, the emotional impact directly to you. And so please, if okay, I could say, if you watch nothing else, from this list, watch this one for, most of these. But really, this is even if you don't like older movies, it's from 1973, which to me is, pretty modern, because, I like films from the very beginning. But just go with it. It's not even long. It's 97 minutes. 99 minutes. Okay. But yeah, it's the most one of the most spellbinding things ever. One of the most affecting things. Like, even as I was watching it for the first time, because I saw it for the first time at the beginning of last January, so almost exactly a year ago. I think it was January 6th. I keep, not because I remember the date, but because I keep tabs of everything I watch, because otherwise I wouldn't remember it, because there's too much. But even as I was watching it for the first time, I was just so affected, let's say. And I was even telling my lady at the time, just like, I saw this Spanish movie. Oh my god, and it stuck with me so strongly throughout the whole year. And then I was in the States in August, and the day before I was set to fly back, I saw they were showing this movie on 35 millimeter. And for those who don't know, seeing a movie projected on film is a million times better than seeing it in a digital projection. Not that you want to be picky, obviously, but for example, it's why people were flying into Prague last year to see Oppenheimer on 70 millimeter IMAX, because there's only so many IMAX theaters in Europe, apparently, and Prague has one of them. So it was sold out for like weeks and weeks, and it does make a big difference. I'm not even like a huge Nolan guy, but I did really appreciate seeing 70 millimeter in. Yeah. Oh my God. There was what I wanted to see? I saw in Berlin this fall, they were showing The Searchers um, which for those who don't know is a western from the 50s. Maybe the best western ever, which is the coldest take imaginable. But did I mention I also love the Wild Bunch? But yeah, to see that on 70 millimeter would be intense. I went to one of the coolest things I ever did for myself was 2 years ago. I saw that they were playing Akira in Berlin, and so I just went, and I didn't even like find a place to stay. I slept in the train station, then I came back the next day, and it was completely worth it. Loved it to death. Um, yeah. So yeah, Spirit of the Beehive. Seeing it on 35 millimeter in New York was one of the forget movie going experiences, just like experiences of my life. It's up there with a lot. It was like seeing the face of God. Um, yeah. This director, Eriche, was only allowed to make a couple of movies. He's only made 4 lifetime. He made a documentary about a painter called the Quince. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, but it's very slow. And it's fantastic. And then just last year, he made a movie called Close Your Eyes, which actually ties into Spirit of the Beehive, and it's great. It's due for a revisit from me, but it's packed full of a lot. Duh, duh. No, no, she just wants to be scratched. Oh, mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, and another movie he made, which I have on Blu-ray here, is El Sur, or The South, which is it went unfinished because of the government like stepped in and was like, dude, you gotta knock this off. Yeah, that's how they said it. But even in its unfinished form, it is just one of the most gorgeous things ever. And again, revisiting. So yeah, all 4 of his films I loved very, very much. But Spirit of the Beehive is. I mentioned this to Jimmy Cool recently, I think, when I was on his podcast again. But if you like Barry Lyndon, because he loves Barry Lyndon, this was a huge, huge, huge influence on Kubrick. He called it an incredible film, which it is, of course, and he borrowed a lot. Yeah, so and the cinematographer on this was going blind while, which doesn't it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make the film better, that kind of external factor, but it is incredible to think about. Kind of like how Kurosawa was losing his eyesight. Akira Kurosawa, I know. There's Kiyoshi Kurosawa and Jun Kurosawa, whose experimental films I do enjoy. But someone's stretching out. Someone's tired. Someone's digging into my leg with her claws. But yeah, Kurosawa was also, losing his sight in the latter portion of his career when he made Ran, which is one of the most ridiculously beautiful films ever. And this was one of his favorite films as well. So I'll go on too much about it if I keep going, but I can't add anything substantive in my current state. Just please, please, please seek it out. Okay. Speaking of overwhelming emotional experiences. Mulholland Drive. This is a film which you might be familiar with because I just in general, because yeah. Oh, you might get I don't know if YouTube will give me will get on my case if Kiki's rear end gets in there, but better safe than sorry. Anyway, I made Misam watch this because he wanted to Best of 3 me in black and white. So, oh no, I made him watch one of the greatest movies ever. So, yeah, this year when I'm not thinking Spirit of the Beehive is the best, I have a couple of contenders, but this is the other one. It really feels like the end of cinema in a way, because it is about cinema. I mean, so is Spirit of the Beehive in many ways, but I think movies that, get boiled down to being about movies, I think that's a little solipsistic. Like, I don't love the view that Vertigo is like only all about movies, for example. As much as I love Vertigo, but... And of course it is about movies, but I think there's a tendency among the artistically inclined in the movie world to eventually become like so involved in nothing but the movies. Not that there's anything wrong with that, being very passionate and involved. I mean, God, of course, but they kind of can only see things through being in movie world. Like suddenly all their main characters are film directors. Antonioni eventually kind of descended into that, and I worship Antonioni, so that's not a crack against him. And like those movies are still good, of course, but yeah, I try not to over apply the this is about cinema reading, um, because it can be very limiting. I just said that, but the thing about Antonioni, Angelopoulos, the Greek director, who is incredible, by the way, I'm going to be borrowing a lot from him for this film we're about to shoot. But yeah, and eventually his characters became, just film directors. But with that, they almost in his movies, in his defense, and even Antonioni's, it almost didn't even matter. It's just like, yeah, just give him a profession. That story is not what it's about. It's about a guy walking around. He could be anything. He could be. But yeah, this is obviously much more overtly about cinema, of course. But because it's great, it touches on a lot of different things. So this has a reputation as being like, oh my God, what's the plot? Let me watch Mulholland Drive explained on YouTube, which, yeah, of course you can. But eventually you will kind of figure out the general gist. Now, I won't give it away, but I'm working on some writing about this film because I love it so much. I mean, I really liked it before this year, of course. But yeah, this film has a reputation for being like, oh my God, what's going on? Who are all these people? Why are they acting like that? It's so weird. Okay, Irene, won't that be the day? Why is Billy Ray Cyrus in this? For those who are young, he's the dad of a pop star slash teen slash child icon who was huge when people my age were growing up, born around 1996. Yeah, so it is surreal if you're my generation and you watch this movie for the first time. You're like, is that Hannah Montana's dad? He's great, by the way. He's probably upset, Lorraine. Fantastic. Yeah, he really brought Gene the Pool Man to life. Anyway, so this movie has a reputation for being twisty and turny and what's going on, but eventually you will figure out what the general plot is. Or rather, the generally agreed upon consensus opinion of what it is, which I happen to agree with. I'm open to other interpretations, of course, because like with Beehive, then you don't just want to limit it down to one thing. But generally, if you're trying to figure out what's going on, there is an explanation. Again, please don't look it up. Even after you watch it, which please do, then you can look it up anytime, but try and figure it out for yourself. It's much more rewarding. You don't want anyway. I think this is probably more accessible if you're picking between these two because this is a 50-year-old Spanish movie. This is from 2001 and it's American, and you might even recognize some of the people, if that's important. But anyway, yeah. So eventually you figure out what it's about, right? And I'd seen it like 4 times, I think, before, in theaters twice even. And at first I was like, yeah, I like it. Okay, it's pretty good. Second time I was like, no, this is really good. During the scene in the theater, the second time, during the scene where what's the song by Linda Dunn? Dun, dun. They played in the H&M commercials now. I've told every little star, of course. I sang it at karaoke this year. Love karaoke. Yeah, so at that moment, seeing it in the theater, I was like, no, this is something really great. But yeah, and then I saw it again in the theater, and then I saw it last year because my lady is a big Twin Peaks fan. Now I was like, and I took her to see Blue Velvet when we first started seeing each other, and she liked that because Kyle MacLachlan and all that. She's a big crush on him, and who could blame her, right? And yeah, so then I was like, hey, what else you would like? Inland Empire. No. That's a joke the movie people will get. Anyway, I wonder if this is not related, but I wonder if Michael Haneke took elements of cachet from Lost Highway. I'll have to investigate the relationship between those films. Okay. Yeah. So my long ass lead up to my point is that once you realize what's going on here, you realize it is actually one of the most emotionally distraught films ever. I mean, I know it ends the way it ends, but most people like leave it going, huh, that sure was weird. I mean, it was pretty intense, pretty dark, literally dark with how it's lit, which is wonderful. And, the music just, Badalamenti has never been better. It's, but yeah, once you realize the love story behind it and how unbelievable, especially if you are relating to it, um, and you are in a very dark place, which is why I started rewatching it this year, or rewatched it for the first time this year in like January. Also, I think in a very dark period, and it just destroyed me. There's a scene, there's a love scene in this, which the first time you go, oh, where did that come from? Huh, that's wacky. And then upon knowing where it's all coming from, then you realize it's one of the most emotionally thing, and it destroys me. It's by the intestines. Naomi Watts whispers something during it, and it's just she's the greatest. This is my favorite perform. I'm not like a big actor performance guy, but this is my favorite performance ever. Even more than the obvious, De Niro and Taxi Driver, which yeah, okay, I understand, but no, it's this. This is it. This is the greatest. Yeah, and then I watched it again with my lady in March, and I was like, well, I know it's coming now. It's not gonna get. It got me even harder. It shattered me. I was shaking apparently, which is not unlike what happens in the film. So yeah, all time great film. People going, oh, what's that whole thing about? But this year, and I saw it one more time after that because it was in the theater, of course. But yeah, this year I have really gone from appreciating it, intellectually. Well, that's really interesting. Oh, it's like Buñuel, it's like Persona, it's like Sunset Boulevard and Vertigo. Like all these other reference points through filtered through Lynch's whole aesthetic. But now I'm just like, this is the most emotionally devastating thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. So and the music playing during that love scene, Badalamenti, I gotta say, ridiculous. Yeah, if I think about it too much, yeah. So, okay. So yeah, that's Mulholland Drive. Now, this is Eyes Wide Shut, which I've been mentioning on this channel for a while now. It's a Czech DVD again. God, of all the things that needs to get like a 4K release, maybe the most beautiful film ever. Just in terms of color. I mean, personally, I would go with Beehive, but in terms of like exploiting the full range of color to it has this effect similar to Suspiria, where it's not concerned with being realistic, but more with like the lights will be like a little overblown. There's halation around them, but that adds to the effect. It's not concerned with realism. It is a very surreal movie, but the whole make it surreal and it resonates more because again, experience, which is why even people who don't understand Mulholland Drive feel it, which is, but yeah, I love how this looks and the title. I mean, how do you translate Eyes Wide Shut? You don't. So it just literally says Spaluici Toha, which means burning passion. So, I mean, like I understand translation is weird. Like the translation for Die Hard is Smrtonosná past, which literally means death trap. I get that you can't really, so you see what I'm saying. Anyway, yeah, saw it in a theater last year. It was amazing. Showed it again to my lady. Loved it. I'd seen it once before I saw it in the theater, but it was a couple of years ago now. And then earlier this spring, I showed it to some friends. And then, we just rewatched it because I'm crazy about it. I'm doing some writing about it too. So the point of this is that I am coming around on the idea that this is the best David Lynch film not made by David Lynch. And I think this is the best David Lynch film besides Mulholland Drive, I mean, look, it's a tough call to make, but this is so, once you see this as a David Lynch movie, it really makes it make a lot more sense. And Kubrick was known to be influenced by Lynch. Eraserhead was huge on The Shining. And then I think he was paying attention to, where Lynch started going with like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, especially Fire Walk with Me. But Yeah, I think that really unlocked it for me. But it's incredible. This is literally like a dream. Not in the sense of it was all a dream. I mean, yes, that's one possible way because, of course, ambiguity. Ambiguity without being vague. But there's lots of potential interpretations. It's just like I don't mean like it was all a dream. I mean literally the way it feels is like a dream. You know, everyone talks very slowly. People say weird things, like especially Tom Cruise. God, I'm such a sucker for Tom Cruise. It's ridiculous. Um, this and Magnolia in the same year. My God. Yeah. If you like Magnolia, by the way, Shortcuts by Altman, you will like it. I mean, it's the most obvious comparison in the world, but more people have to watch Shortcuts. Downey Jr.'s in that. He's great. A lot of people are great. Jack Lemmon's monologue in that. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Um, yeah. So the very off kilter kind of feel, and even not just like the way people talk, which is ridiculous, but even the narrative coincidences. Like every time he's in danger, he gets saved just by the skin of his teeth, even if not overtly. Or how the whole thing increases, and in general tension, and even after you think it's climaxed in that regard, it just keeps going and going and going, and it just reaches this pitch which is unlike any other. And the ball sequence in the middle is really just, I mean, ritualistic, obviously, but primordial might be a better word. What is it, Groudon? Yeah, this is the primal Groudon of cinema. Or at least of David Lynch's filmography, if Mulholland Drive is Mega Rayquaza. Anyway, anything does go in the Lynch universe. So yeah, this is my favorite Kubrick film. I think it's the best, even better than 2001. And yeah, if you've seen it before and you were like, yeah, I didn't like it as much as Full Metal Jacket, Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, Doctor Strangelove, whatever else. I like Paths of Glory and The Killing very much, actually. Or 2001, the obvious one. But this is the one. This is, yeah, it's just nothing else gorgeous to look at. Yeah. Okay. Rounding out my series of things that I think are the best movie ever. These four actually: Beehive, Mulholland Drive, Eyes Wide Shut, and now Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or the source of half my thumbnails. Yeah. Now, if you want to watch this one, it's not difficult. Okay, first of all, last I checked, Eyes Wide Shut was on archive.org. Please seek out the highest quality rendition you can. With Texas Chainsaw, it actually almost benefits from being viewed in worse quality because it's so raw, which is the most overused descriptor here. But this is an introduction for most people, and not generating novel perspectives necessarily. But yeah, I got to see this in a theater because it's its 50th anniversary. But yeah, if you want to see it, it's on YouTube. You just type in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 and it's there, all 82 minutes. Which another reason you want to watch it. 82 minutes. It's over like that, and it's leaves you. You know what's great about it? Not just that it's frightening, although it is astonishingly frightening. I mean, the reason it's frightening is because it really digs in. Not just because there's no jump scares. Not really. People call the Mulholland Drive jump scare, which I acknowledge, even if I personally disagree with. But I recognize that as someone who watches a lot of movies. To your average person, like I saw a Mulholland with one of my friends, in March. We had like a whole viewing, and as soon as that happened, she was like, "If something else like that happens again, I'm out of here." Um, yeah, yeah. But this is insanely frightening just because of how intense it is. The use of sound in this is incredible. It's got like proto-industrial music as the soundtrack. I mean, Hooper really ahead of his time. Also, something I'm working on writing about Toby Hooper. Well, first of all, Texas Chainsaw is, an art film in many ways, even though it doesn't sound like it, because it sounds like, oh, it's a sleazy slasher. It can also be an art film. But yeah, I think Toby Hooper is way more than just Chainsaw. I mean, he got a bad rap because he did Poltergeist, but then, Spielberg was interfering there big time. So I think that that messed up his career, messed up his reputation. But I would take Hooper over Spielberg any day. And Texas Chainsaw is the main reason, of course. I mean, Spielberg wanted Hooper because he was so reverent of Chainsaw. I mean, everyone was reverent of Chainsaw. You know, every artsy filmmaker you could name has reverence for this. Ridley Scott, when they were making Alien, he was like Texas Chainsaw in space. Apichatpong Weerasethakul, or Joe, the Thai director, he put Texas Chainsaw on his top 10 Sight and Sound, which is like the biggest poll. They do it every 10 years. They did it 2 years ago, and it's like the biggest one. So look, if you're looking to like get into like, oh, what are the biggest movies? The go-to lists are the Sight and Sound poll, and They Shoot Pictures, Don't They? That's a really good one. If you're looking for the essentials, don't go to IMDb. Yeah, so Chainsaw is astonishing because it is at once so raw and intense, you know, almost an exploitation style, you know, with a 16 millimeter photography as opposed to the standard 35, which is, you know, like a big Hollywood movie, or even just a regular Hollywood movie, which makes it feel more intimate. Wes Craven, the director of things like Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes. Shocker is an underrated one. He was like, this feels like someone just took a camera and started killing people. But if you watch this, you know, expect it and not going, oh my god, it's so, you know, oh, they're hillbillies and it's gross and low. You will also see one of the most beautifully shot films ever. It is meticulous in its detail and just that scorching orange Texas. Oh, it's astonishing. And then the last 15 minutes are some of the greatest cinema ever. The dinner scene on, just, you could tell this guy made documentaries before he made this. It is just those close-ups on Marilyn Burns' face. You know, just every time you think he can't possibly get closer, because eventually he's like in her eye, and you think he can't get closer, and then it's like the vein in her eye is like taking up half the screen, or something like that. It's astonishingly visceral. Must be experienced. I made my dad watch this because he hates horror movies and all that, and I was like, Dad, you got to do this for me, and he was like, that was incredible. So yeah, that Texas Chainsaw, cannot recommend enough. Please watch it. Even if you don't like horror, just, you will survive. And it's a film with a lot on its mind. Remember that whole like one idea thing I mentioned? This is not a film like that. It's got so much. You know, I even think of it as the great American film, you know, in the great American novel tradition. I think it's this. You can name Citizen Kane and a bunch of other stuff, which, to be clear, is great. I really hate when people, you know, say, oh, well, it's not Citizen Kane, but it's not supposed to be, and then they've never seen Citizen Kane. Like, okay, I get it. Citizen Kane is the snob movie for snobs who, you know, can't tolerate a fun time at the movies. That was a tangent because I should live in Tangiers. Ugh, nice. Yeah, I just realized I should be making Finchinator jokes. I'll get to them. Finchinator hasn't seen any of these movies. That's right. Yeah, shame. Bam, nailed it. So, yeah, this has a lot. I've read about this too. It's endlessly fascinating. Holds up to repeat viewings spectacularly, which, you know, all of these do. I think I've seen this like 6 times now, 5, something like that, and really just unbelievable. It's so frightening. It leaves you thinking there's like, it sounds like a splatter and gore fest, right? But there's really not that much blood. Like for a movie called Chainsaw Massacre, you would expect it to be, you know, the goriest thing on earth, and it was so frightening. It literally like scared people into thinking there was more violence and blood than there actually was, or rather, depicted violence. You know, a lot of it is implication, and it implies it so well that your brain fills the blanks in with such detail that you come away thinking, oh my god, that was the goriest thing I've ever seen in my life. Then you rewatch it, it's like, actually, But as far as like raw, this thing is so frightening. It's like they just the reason it's so frightening is that it throws you in so close without like explanation, which it almost takes on a cosmic quality, as in how could this happen, in America's backyard. um Not just in that sense, but but just in the whole absurdity of death. But that's an inherent fear we have, of course, but also, especially nowadays, this feels like it gets more relevant with how people eat up true crime. Like this guy is based on a real serial killer, Ed Gein, I think. Um, and people. My friend who freaked out at the Mulholland Drive jump scare, she falls asleep to true crime. God bless her. Yeah. So I'm losing a little bit. I'm tired, but yeah, Texas Chainsaw is it's like plucking an exposed nerve. It gets as directly close to everything that organizes fear inside of you and just pummels it. Um, yeah, shock to the senses every time. More, I mean, and on the big screen, it was just the most. I almost don't want to watch it again because, I mean, of course I will, but yeah. Texas Chainsaw. Okay, so those were the ones I wanted to go in most detail in because they were all individually very crucial. Whereas I skimmed over El Sur because this is not one I'm as intimately familiar with yet, even though it already means a lot to me. So yeah, for the others, I will just be quicker. Taxi Driver. I just wanted to show off the Taxi Driver VHS. Yeah, Jodie Foster is delightful. Liz Smith, Cosmopolitan. Yeah, I found this in a store in New York for $3 a couple of years ago. So hell yeah, I'm picking that up. I don't have a VHS player. I will. I want to get a Laserdisc player, and I want to hunt down that old Akira Laserdisc. Yeah. So I saw it in a theater at the beginning of this month, and it's just. I mean, I know I said Naomi Watts is my favorite, but De Niro. I mean, I know it's such a cliche, right? Of course, and it's like Gosling in Drive and everything, but some things are cliche for a reason, It's like the Beatles. And he's just gets it. Now, of course, this is not a he's literally me thing. Um, I cannot believe because before my lady left to see her family for a few days, then we watched American Psycho on Christmas Eve. Actually, I mean, we celebrate Christmas on the 24th here, but yeah, she was like, you know what, I feel like watching American Psycho, and we watched it, and it was great, of course. But because she had only seen it like a long time ago, so she wasn't really familiar. And last time I saw it was a long time ago, but and watching it's a fantastic experience, obviously. But I'm just like, how can anyone take this seriously? You know. But yeah, to be clear, I am not getting all Sigma Travis on you. But yeah, of course, that's one of the many reasons it's such a great film because you relate to him so hard, and then you see where it goes, and yeah, I won't be too redundant there. Okay, Perfect Blue. This is still one of my very, very, very favorites. On December 31st, 2022, I made a video called Perfect Blue, BLOO, about the smoking player Blue. So I figured it was worth mentioning because in February of this year, I got to see this in a theater because my favorite theater, the one I'm going to tomorrow, they have this like Masters of Animation series, and they show I've seen Akira there a couple times. Last year they had Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, so they were showing Perfect Blue there, and I mean, oh my god, I snatched those tickets up so fast. So I was excited to see it in a theater. But what's funny is that like these, like Akira and Perfect Blue, and like these are not films that had been shown in the Czech Republic before. I think like they're obviously classics and they're like known here to people who like movies because of the internet, of course. But I have not that I'm an expert on this, but I do not think that this had like a mass audience in upon release here. Like Akira the manga just got released in Czech like 2 years ago, I think. I have it. It's great. But yeah, so I went to see it, and the audience, like, there's an audience at the theater, which I think they just kind of go because, oh, I haven't heard of that, but I like going to the movies. I like this theater. You know, we can hang out at the bar before and after. It'll be fun. And the reason I say this is because there are a lot of people who like go to these movies, these old movies, and they don't quite know what's going on. You know, now I understand not everyone, you know, psychotically watches movies like I do and knows, you know, everything about everything, or knows a lot about the things that they're showing there. Um, but a lot of time they like have no idea what's coming. Like I mentioned Blue Velvet earlier, you know, seeing that with an audience who doesn't know what's coming is really something. Or when I saw Vertigo there last year, actually, I think a lot of people had no idea, and they were kind of laughing because, you know, it's there. Jimmy Stewart, you know, he talks like he's in the '50s because it is in the '50s, and that can sound kind of comical to a modern audience. Um, and they were kind of laughing at stuff I did not think was funny at all. Like if you watch Perfect Blue, you know, like there's some stuff in here which is about the least funny thing you could possibly imagine. But I think they were laughing at it, probably because they were uncomfortable and they, you know, didn't know how else to react to it. Um, but also, you know, because it's an anime movie, and most people's idea of anime, you know, anime is fairly popular here, especially in recent years. But it's more things like, as far as movies go, it's like Ghibli movies, right? So, you know, you see something like Perfect Blue, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be kind of like that, right? Oh, maybe it'll be like a little darker, but yeah, this movie gets nasty. And without spoiling anything, because please watch it. I mean, talk about like Texas Chainsaw, 82 minutes. This one hits the credits at like minute 77 or something. Can you tell I've seen it a lot? But yeah, also another 80-minute affair. You can crank these out back to back, not even 2 hours and 45 minutes. Um, I watched Kinds of Kindness yesterday because my lady was watching it and she was like, hey, you got to watch this. And I was like, that's the length of Perfect Blue and Texas Chainsaw put together. It was a fun time, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy long movies, of course I do. But yeah, if length is off-putting to you, it's not really an issue with any of these. I think I mean, Mulholland is 2.5. Eyes is 2 hours, 3/4, roughly. But you know, these others are perfectly breezable. Okay, so yeah, the thing with Perfect Blue is that there's a pizza delivery scene. Those who have seen it know what I'm talking about, and it has, you know, a moment. And when that moment happened, you know, there was like a gasp at the whole theater, and that was a very edifying moment because it was. I feel like they finally got what was going on because it's. Well, I really don't want to give anything away. I mean, even if I, you know, described it, it wouldn't really change the experience of seeing it for the first time, I guess. But you know, just to yeah, there's this moment in the pizza delivery scene, and they just gasped, and I was like, okay. Another reason it's, I mean, look, I like seeing movies in theaters, even if I'm the only person in the audience, which hasn't happened a lot, you know, but maybe like once or twice, you know, even if there's like one or two other people. But for me, it's just about the big screen. But to see it in, you know, in the dark room and complete commitment to the film, but to see it with an audience can be great. It's why seeing the Evil Dead trilogy on Halloween 2 years ago with a huge crowd was the greatest experience of my life in a theater. Um, but yeah, so to see the mood shifted from kind of like, haha, this is, you know, oh, that's kind of weird, to, oh my God, what just, yeah. So yeah, Perfect Blue, incredible, eternal. I won't talk too much about this because it's simple but devastating. This is, and I'm really sorry for how I'm going to pronounce the title. Nos Amour. I think I'm really sorry to anyone who speaks French. It means to our loves, but there are some foreign films, and I know foreign is relative, but generally, you know, international, world cinema, whatever. You know, there are some films that are just known internationally by their original title. So like Michelangelo Antonioni's 1960 film is not The Adventure, it's L'Avventura. even though, and I'm sorry to Italian speakers, but and it just is. It's whatever catches on. Conversely, Godard's Breathless is never referred to by its French title. It's just Breathless. Anyway, so yeah, Anos Amour. This is a very intense coming of age slash family drama. I personally, thanks to personal experience, I am partial to any movie that is unafraid to show domestic violence. Not in a sensationalized way, but this felt very, very true to life. True to life without shoving your face, because I don't like films that claim to be realistic and then kind of shove your face in the realism of it all. Like, oh, you got the aggressive handheld close up, stuff like that. The whole like fake documentary thing. Shooting documentary style is great. Look, all that jazz, French Connection, all that. But what's that great movie? Z by Costa Gavras. That inspired Friedkin on the French Connection. But you can overdo it. But yeah, this film I wouldn't even say it's like documentary style, like a John Cassavetes with Husbands or Women Under the Influence or anything. Jenna Rollins, my God. Yeah, but this has been called like the French Cassavetes, but honestly, I prefer this to any Cassavetes. Yeah, Sandrine Bonnaire, who is known in the cinephile world for Agnes Varda's Vagabond, another great film. She's tremendous. This hit a lot of personal notes for me. So, yeah, if you like French coming of age, or actually, if you like coming of age movies, the French part, forget about it. The cheap like French jokes you see all over the internet, like don't let that get in the way of something that is really going to resonate with you. And if that really works, then I didn't see it this year. I saw it last December. But Cold Water by Olivier Assayas. I don't know if it's Assayas or Assayas. I still don't know, even though I've seen like 10 of his films. But that one was similarly impactful for me, even though the style is very different. But yeah, this is in your face without being in your face, which is how it should be. Okay. This one is kind of strange. Not because the film is strange, but because of how it relates. This is a box set of Yasujiro Ozu's late period. And I was not really into Ozu before. I saw Tokyo Story 2 years ago, and I kind of had to like force myself through it because when you're first getting into movies, you can catch on to stuff, like even artsy stuff, if there's something to catch on to, like Tarkovsky's slow style, you even like fall into kind of hypnosis. I guess actually I won't go down that road. Or Kurosawa, he makes some of the most arresting imagery you will ever see in your life, right? And Bergman, I mean, Persona, just gonna knock your socks off. I just saw that in the theater, actually. Skipped basketball to go see it, and I was very pleased to be hanging out with my good buddy Ingmar again. His whole career is a one long dark night of the soul. Relatable. Anyway, so yeah, Ozu and Bresson, in a very similar way, but yeah, we'll stick with Ozu here. That like for a budding cinephile, he can feel kind of boring. Not because the film is boring, but because when you're used to, I'm not even saying action scenes, because like nobody could accuse Tarkovsky of being an action filmmaker, but like he draws you in with his amazing images and the rhythm of that his slowness falls into, which has a hypnotic quality. This isn't slow enough to be true slow cinema, even though it was a big influence. And the images are beautifully framed and composed, of course, but they're not really the kind that explode at the new eye, let's say. So you're kind of like, hey, what's the deal with Ozu? What's the deal with Bresson? I don't really get it. So I kind of forced myself through Tokyo Story when I first saw it. And then when I was like, yeah, that was good. I guess he's just not my thing. But then Tokyo Story really stuck with me. And I was like, that was kind of amazing. There's a well-known interview with Wong Kar-wai where he talks about films that have a great aftertaste. So like while you're watching it, you're like, yeah, that was pretty good. I don't know. And then you keep thinking about it and you're like, actually, that was incredible. Or a very well-known quote by Abbas Kiarostami where he goes, I've fallen asleep in some movies in the movie theater, but those movies I fall asleep in, I never forget. You know, they kind of lull me into another dimension almost, which is incredible. I have some Kiarostami's I have to watch. Um, but yeah, with so Tokyo Story was basically that, but I wasn't like in a hurry to get to his other stuff. And I think I watched what's the other one I saw? I saw Late Spring, which is another big one of his, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get it. You know, this is pretty cool. And then for some reason, around March, this is still a very dark period. Early March. I think it was early March. It might have been late February, whatever. I think it was right before Dune came out. So whatever. Yeah. And for some reason, I really just wanted to watch just drama. Like no frills, and that has been one of my go-to genres this year. Just straight ahead, family drama, personal drama, whatever it is. And so I decided, you know what? I feel like some Ozu. I feel like no stylist. Yeah, obviously Ozu has a very definable style, but I don't want like an obvious like, oh, this is very stylized. This is. I'm not expressing it well. Overtly stylized, let's say, like when you watch a Kurosawa movie, or I just saw Throne of Blood in the theater, by the way. Incredible, absolutely insane. I loved Throne of Blood, but it had been a while since I saw it in the theater. It was unreal. Felt kind of like a slow cinema precursor. That, and I just saw a couple of von Sternbergs, and I was like, this guy is slow. Anyway, that's another subject to write about. So much to write about, isn't it thrilling? Yeah, but with this in mind, so I just wanted something with no frills. With Kurosawa, the imagery is cool, the camera movement is insane. With Ozu, it's very simple. It's pared down, so simple drama without anything else getting in the way, let's say. So you could say something like the documentary style of a Cassavetes would be fun for that, or would work for that. But it can get a little too shouty, a little too actorly. Not that that's a bad thing, but I was looking for some more simplistic drama. Let's say some, not that this isn't true to life with its intensity, but the drama that kind of goes more quietly. So yeah, basically that led to me seeking out Tokyo Twilight, which is on this. And I have seen all of these since then, except the End of Summer, which I've been saving, because I know I'm going to love it. Because since I saw Tokyo Twilight this year, I've watched like 7, 8 other Ozu movies, and I've loved all of them. And I'm just like, he kind of does the same thing over and over, but he refines his style so thoroughly. So now I'm crazy about him, of course. So it was a big breakthrough for me. But yeah, Tokyo Twilight, was perfect at that very, very bleak time. It's a very, very dark film. And so simple family drama, Tokyo Twilight. I mean, early spring, Tokyo Twilight, Equinox Flower, late autumn. I can vouch for all of those being great. And I'm sure the End of Summer is great too. But Tokyo Twilight is my personal favorite Ozu movie, even more than Tokyo Story. And incredible. So, and the reason I mentioned it being weird is because around the same time, I watched like the furthest thing from an Ozu movie as well, Escape from L.A. with Carpenter, by John Carpenter. The Thing, Halloween, and Escape from New York. And I love Escape from New York, but I knew Escape from L.A. was like the cheesy, dumb sequel. And I gotta say, like this was during this particularly dark period. Tokyo Twilight was like the drama that was cathartic for me. But seeing Escape from LA and all its cheesiness, when Kurt Russell showed up in that eye patch and just went, "Call me Snake," and that voice of his, felt like he was saving my life. I'm being dramatic, but listen, art is important. Okay, we're down to our last two parts here. Okay, so funnily enough, I did not watch any of the things here this year, but they're all part of my collection. And I'm referring to the works of Rainer Werner Fassbinder, one of my very favorites. I mean, I liked his work a lot before this year, but this year he really became like one of my most favorite, let's say. This is The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. My favorite. And for those of you who like prestige TV, you will like Berlin Alexanderplatz because it is a film, but it was shown on TV. It has 13 episodes and then a 2 hour, and they're all like an hour, except for the first one, I think is an hour and a half. And then there's an epilogue, which is 2 hours, and the whole thing is incredible. Hard to argue against this as his magnum opus. Um, I'm actually trying to track down the book this is based on, which sadly is not included here. But no, that's something else. But yeah, this is a very bingeable show slash film, kind of like Kieslowski's Decalogue or Refn's Too Old to Die Young, which I love. Anyway, and this is a check. I found this in a store of a couple of films of his. Martha, which is great. In a Year with 13 Moons. And then there's a documentary about him, not shot by him. And then there's one of his films that I haven't seen called Why His Hair Are Run Amok, which I'm excited to. The thing is, he made like 40 movies in his lifetime. I've seen 22 at this point, I think. So I'm like barely halfway through. I think the next one I'm going to get through is Why His Hair Are Run Amok, and then his 8 Hours Don't Make a Day. I'm excited for that one. But yeah, so this is not really a specific Fassbinder film so much as I love his filmography. For example, In a Year with 13 Moons, Martha, and Bitter Tears, they are so full of emotional cruelty and abuse that, he doesn't shy away. And I'm sure you're seeing a pattern. But yeah, when a director doesn't shy away from that without sensationalizing it is the thing, then that is really resonant, I think. And he's just such a master that he could make anything compelling. Yeah, I just watched. Sorry. I Only Want You to Love Me, and before that, the last thing I watched was Lily Marlene, which gorgeous. He had an incredible eye. But yeah, everything comes together the most for me in Bitter Tears, which is due for a rewatch. So yeah, Fassbinder, everything I've seen, all 22 films I have loved. Even like the weaker ones I still enjoy very much. And his heights are just towering, almost unmatched. Yeah, so I have saved maybe or among the best for last. Again, I didn't see all of these this year, although I saw most of them this year. And these are the films of Kenji Mizuguchi, who I've also now seen 21 films of his, and he made a lot, but I've seen most of the major ones, but just everything he did is incredible. Like, I said even Fassbinder's like weaker works I still enjoyed. Mizuguchi's weaker works I still love. He has this incredible, like he makes a lot of movies about the difficulties of women in Japanese society, and the traditional Oscar Beatty American version of that is just going to lay on the obvious big emotional scenes, the histrionics, and big close-ups, making it easy for you. And the music's gonna tell you what to feel and all that. And Mizuguchi just keeps enough of a distance, not so distant as to become like cold or passive or clinical, like you could accuse, let's say, Haneke or Kubrick of being, but just also not enough to like pass judgment. You are there in solidarity with her, but you are also invited to think about what's going on. Which is wonderful. So, what's crazy is when I also first saw his films, remember what I said about Ozu? It's the same idea. Like at first I saw 2 movies that were recommended by Scorsese as like part of his like 10 best movies ever. And Mizuguchi had 2 on there. One was Ugetsu and the other was Sancho the Bailiff. And I liked them fine, well enough, but I was like, this isn't really doing it for me. It's again not as like, this is not to say Kurosawa is less incredible because he's flashier, because I mean by today's standards he's the most restrained guy there ever lived. But that ever lived, sorry. But the but again, to a new cinephile he might seem kind of stiff, kind of turgid, let's say, even if you're being really harsh. So like I appreciated them, but I was like, you know what, maybe he's just not my thing. then I saw The Story of the Last Chrysanthemum, and I was like, this is really good. This is still like 2 years ago, and I was like, okay, you know what? I think this really did it for me. Um, a progenitor of slow cinema. This is 1939, by the way. Uh, Unbelievable stuff. But I was like, okay, I'll check out more of his stuff later. And then sometime last year, I happened upon Osaka Elegy, and I was like, you know what? I like this too. That's also, I think, 34, 35, 36, somewhere in there. It's one of those three for sure. I think it's 36. And I was like, you know what? It's good. All right, I guess I'm getting into Mizuguchi. And then at the end of last year, I saw A Story from Shikamatsu, otherwise known as The Crucified Lovers. That's the title I found it under. But oh my god, and it just, come on. I can only snap with this hand, by the way. I might have mentioned that in a video before. But yeah, there's a scene on in a boat on the water that's just one of the, I mean, the whole thing is, yeah. He doesn't make films that are very exciting to hear about unless you're like a major cinephile, but endlessly rewarding. So that was the beginning of last year. And then on the first day, on January 1st, I watched a couple things actually, but the best thing I watched on January 1st of last year was The Life of Oharu. And I keep going back on what his best is for me. I mean, it was Last Chrysanthemum for a while. It was Crucified Lovers, which is a better title than Story from Shikamatsu. It was Life of Oharu, and then it was Street of Shame, which is also on here. Right now, I think I would go with Crucified Lovers. I don't know. What I do know is that I'm really due for a rewatch of Ugetsu and Sancho, because I think with my current perspective, I will appreciate them a lot more. But yeah, everything I've seen, I've just loved. And also, not just Osaka Elegy, Street of Shame, again, contender for his best, his mission statement, really. But Sisters of the Gion, I don't know. But, and Women of the Night, explosive, furious, not in an overtly intense way like we would consider now. I mean, but by his standards, of course, But the restraint is just incredible, and it's not just restraint because I'm too good for that. I'm above that, but it's restraint with purpose. And yeah, with Ozu as well as Mizuguchi, I really like their late period, their old master phase, or late style. And for those who are, I'm very interested in late style as a whole right now. But late style, for those who aren't familiar, is basically when you have a particular style, right? And then you lead. By the end of your career, you are refining it so thoroughly, so intensely that it's almost, I say this very lightly, I haven't thought this through, so forgive me, but it's almost like becoming a parody of yourself, almost, because I don't think Ozu became a parody of himself, nor Mizuguchi. It's more that you are so refined, like you can tell what it's going to be before you come in, but it's so perfected, so refined, so masterful, so precise, that you want to see it over and over. Like if someone said, oh, hey, Ozu made another movie exactly like that, I'd be like, great, I got to see it, Same with Mizuguchi. So yeah, late style I'm very interested in. There are Pokemon parallels, I'm sure. Let's use an example everyone knows. Quentin Tarantino, I think, is in his late style on his last couple films, because like he was known for being talky and violent, but now he's so talky and so drawn out, and even his scenes of violence are just, some people would say, oh, he's overindulging, he's borderline cartoonish. And as a guy, I enjoy Tarantino, of course. I mean, it's easy to rip on Tarantino because he is like the favorite director of people who know like 3 directors. Which there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But he does make very enjoyable movies. I was sad to miss Kill Bill in a theater this year, but my favorite is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which, if you're familiar with Tarantino, that is late style. That is everything about Tarantino just cranked up. Although on the other hand, the whole witty dialogues like, oh, Madonna like a virgin and, cheeseburgers in Paris, that kind of like witticism is dialed down, but, it's still very talky. But like his set of obsessions, oh, the alternate history thing. I mean, Jesus Christ, that he started with Inglourious Bastards. So he's talky, he's, taking his time, really stretching out that length. The violence is just getting more intense. And the alternate history thing, he's trying to like fix the past with his most personal film yet, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it's really feeling more and more like a completed statement. So honestly, if Hollywood is his last movie, I am completely content. I think it's a perfect note to end on. The Last Image, my God. So that is basically late style. So what I'm really trying to say with this is that I think Mizuguchi in his late style might be the greatest director to have ever lived. Yeah. Look, my favorite / the best director changes like all the time, obviously. But this year, more than anything else, I have burned through the filmographies of Mizuguchi and Fassbinder, and as well as the others mentioned like Ozu. But yeah, and my multiple rewatches of the things mentioned. But yeah, so I have dragged this video on long enough. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your New Year's is great. And I hope your New Year has you finding your equivalent of seeing The Big Lebowski in a theater after you have resolved everything. So thank you.